Hello, everyone, and welcome to our show. Today, I have two amazing guests with me, not just one. So, welcome to our show.
Well, thank you for having us.
You.
Thank you. Okay, so we are going to be talking about walking, but more than walking. We're going to be talking about Tai Chi and walking and mindfulness and how we can improve our health. Really, I mean that's what we talk about on my show. How do we improve our health as women? And I have been talking about walking for a long time. It's something that I do in my daily practice. But before we get into all the good stuff, if I could have each of you introduce yourselves. Dr. Kim, if you want to go first, introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your background and this amazing book that you guys have to share with us today.
Okay, great. So, my name is Dr. Yoon Kim. I'm a doctor of East Asian medicine. I'm in practice here in Santa Monica in Los Angeles, California, and co-author with Dr. MoraMarco of this book, "Walking Your Way to Vitality." And we're really so proud of this book, and we're both clinicians, and we wanted to create a book for our patients and of course our students and others who are interested in this topic. But movement is such an important part of health. Sedentary lifestyle is a risk factor for so many chronic diseases, and it's very difficult to tell people to exercise. They don't know. Sometimes they have limitations, they just don't want to move. And so we really wanted to create a book that was very simple, had practices that were safe, accessible. Almost everyone can walk. There's no special equipment needed. You don't need to join a gym. And we wanted to create a plan for patients to be able to learn these practices that are so simple that they can do every day, wherever they are. And it's been really wonderful to see that coming into fruition. And Dr. MoraMarco, I'm going to ask him to talk about his inspiration for writing the book.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Ian. Jacques MoraMarco, I'm the co-author of this book. It's actually almost like the phoenix, a rebirth of a book that was called The Way of Walking, published in the year 2000. So it's 26 years ago. So this is the new revamped, modernized edition of this book. And I'm very happy to have had Dr. Yoon being part of the updated science and all the studies behind the different types of movement therapies that we are discussing in the book. And also we have used also a new QR code method of inserting the actual videos for each of the movements of the book into this manuscript. Now, my inspiration originally was all the treatment I did on HIV/AIDS patients back in the 80s and 90s, where the life expectancy was only 18 months once you were diagnosed with HIV/AIDS. At that time, you would be diagnosed. By the time you get the diagnosis, you were a full-blown AIDS patient.
Right.
And I saw that some of these patients that followed some of this method and also had acupuncture and herbal medicine, Tai Chi, Qigong, they were able to last until the new medication came around in the mid 90s. So I really saw the effects of it and I saw the benefit of it. And that was the inspiration of this book. Yeah.
I love that. So you're both practicing currently with.
Well, Dr. Yun is in clinical practice, and I am mostly now at the Los Angeles VA, the greater VA, working the PTSD clinic. So I'm working part-time there. Yes.
That's amazing. Oh my gosh, I love that. So what like huge results you can get with, you're using the movement and the acupuncture and the herbs are so important. I love that. So maybe we could just start with the walking piece. And you talk about Tai Chi walking. Can you tell us what that is?
So Tai Chi walking, what we talk about in our book is the different Tai Chi animal walks. That's a little bit different than what you see in social media, like Tai Chi walking, which is basically a shift away. So these are the movements derived from some of the Tai Chi form. Of course, most people, they have some resistance in learning the traditional form that is quite complex. There is the classical 108, 98 move, then there is the modern version of the 24. So there's many different styles and methods of Tai Chi that are taught. They're somewhat challenging. So what I've done here is I've distilled some of the key movements, the Tai Chi walking being the way that the movement and the shift, the weight distribution occurs in the Tai Chi movement. So it is based a lot on the observation of how a feline animal, here we call it the catwalk, but that goes through the whole classification of, leopard, tigers, lions, all have a specific, distinct walking method, transferring the weight in a very aware manner, a very conscious manner. And in this case, one of the walks, we call it the catwalk. Okay. Then the other walk in this book, we call it the bird type of walk, the golden rooster, that's the name in the Tai Chi form. And that is based on the way the birds walk. Like you might have also known about the flamingo stance. One of the ways to measure one's health and longevity is how well you can stand on one leg. So that is done in the Tai Chi set as the golden rooster. No matter what style of Tai Chi you do, if it's the Chen style, the Yang style, the Wu Hao style, or in our case, the Sun style, they all have this golden rooster stance on one leg as a transitional move. So you have the one leg stance. And finally, the final animal walk that we touch in our book is called the bear spirit walk, where you walk like a bear. And a lot of these movements were observed by the great physician Watto, was a physician around the year 200. And he observed the animal and absorbed the quality, the energetic qualities of the movement of the animal, and what was the strength factor that it would give you. And eventually it also became part of martial arts. So you have the tiger style, you have the crane style, you even have a style called the monkey style and the praying mantis style. So you have all these different styles of martial art based on observation, and also not only martial art, but how to enhance one's energy based on these animal movements.
Yeah, and some of your listeners might not be aware of what Tai Chi is. They probably heard the term. So Tai Chi, as Dr. MoraMarco said, it's a form of martial art. So it was developed to fight and to defend. So it's only in the last 100 years that researchers realize the health benefits of these movements. And so if you go onto PubMed, which is a National Endowment of Health database of biomedical articles, there are 1,500 research studies on the health benefits of Tai Chi. It's amazing. Everything from cancer support, wound healing, arthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, and on and on and on. And it's just an incredibly powerful therapeutic method. And so in our book, we've extracted these 3 walks that can really help with balance, fall prevention, mental health, sleep, and it's really an incredible therapeutic method. And I'm so glad that you're doing it. We're huge fans and practitioners of Tai Chi, Sun Tai Chi.
Okay, so you did mention just a minute ago social media. So this is, and right before we hit record, I let you guys know I just started Tai Chi. And I have seen it on social media. Like, I feel like this new generation is like very interested, and they are talking about it, which is amazing. And of course, I've heard about it. I have a picture in my mind of what it looks like, but like you said, a lot of people don't know what it actually is. Thank you for that explanation. But I was having some pain in my hips, and and then I saw a video of this lady talking about Tai Chi, and I was like, okay. So I went onto YouTube and I did a video, and I made my husband do it with me, because we are, and I'm 49, my husband's in his 50s, and I'm like, we're starting to get some aches and pains. You know what I mean? Like we're having soreness where I'm like, okay, I don't even know why I'm having this pain in this area. So when you talk about some of the benefits of Tai Chi, are those things that are also like, to give me some more benefits of, and like, who should be doing this? Because I think a lot of people think, maybe they don't know fully what it is, or they think, oh, maybe I'm not a senior citizen. And that's like what you think of when you think of people doing Tai Chi outside in the park. So tell us more, because there's a new generation who is embracing it too.
It's for everyone. Again, it's so safe. Tai Chi is considered low to moderate impact exercise. And in our medicine, in our philosophy, that's what you want to do. You want to move slowly, you want to move mindfully, you want to pay attention to the breath. You want to really check in with the body. And, I want to bring in the mindfulness component. That's the secret sauce to all of these walks that we introduce. That it's not just choreography, it's not just going through movement. It's really about bringing full awareness to our body. So shifting of the weight, lifting of the knee, feet on the ground. This is really an important part of these practices. And research says that mindfulness actually delays cellular aging. So there was a research study in the 2000s from the University of California, San Francisco, where they study the impact of mindfulness on telomeres, which are protective caps at the ends of our chromosomes. And mindfulness can actually delay the shortening of the telomeres, which happens as we age, as we are exposed to stress. And so mindfulness is really everything. It's the key component to our health and happiness.
Yeah, and mindfulness is more of a modern term use, but in China they would use the term yi, which means mind in ten. In the Tibetan tradition, they would call it rikpa, which is mind awareness. So this awareness component has been discussed in classical texts for medicine, for health, for thousands of years. So they knew what it did. But of course, they could not talk about chromosome or telomeres and all the modern scientific components, but they knew intuitively what these mindful components would do to one's health and well-being.
Yeah. And we want to emphasize that movement is good for everybody, right? Period. But if we want to derive even more health benefits of moving and walking, the mindfulness component is really key. And again, when we bring our attention to our bodies, that's a way of anchoring the mind so that we sort of train our mind from worrying about the future or ruminating about the past. And we know that doing that can cause depression and anxiety and insomnia and so on and so forth. And so we're training our mind as we walk to really check in with our body.
Yeah. So Tai Chi animal walks are just one of the chapters in this book, because we go way beyond that. Things like the immunity walk, which is based on a traditional walk that was really popularized in China back in the late 70s, early 80s, based on a very famous artist that had diagnosis of terminal cancer named Guo Lin. And now it's become a very important support group and adjunct therapy to cancer patients there. So it's a specific type of walking and breathing with movement. So that's called the immunity walk. And then we also have a chapter on the vitality walk, which was a very interesting type of walking that I encountered in my travels over 50 years ago in the Himalayan regions. And I noticed individuals at that time, I thought they were really old. They were in their 50s and 60s. They were walking up so fast. And I was in my 20s. How can these individuals go up so fast? And they were coordinating their breath with the steps, dynamic breathing and walking. And that was really amazing experience where I saw these individuals, which I thought were really elderly. They just were, I was a pretty good athlete. I was a black belt in martial arts, and I was 20 years old, but I couldn't keep up with them. So breathing breathing and walking dynamically. So that's another component of the book. And then we go into the mindful walk, which, Dr. Yun just touched about this whole idea of mindfulness. And then we finalize the book with a chapter on the Bagua, which is called circular walking. And this whole idea of circular walking, which is used as a martial arts in China called the Bagua. And it's a circular martial art, but you can adapt it to a meditative walk. And in the Western Judeo-Christian tradition, they call it labyrinth walking, but it is found in many different cultures where they will do this called circumambulation, walking around a sacred site. And that is done in Tibet, in the Potala, in the Great Mountain Kailash. You see it in different churches and location in Europe, but also in Hajj, which is the Islamic pilgrimage. They would do that circumambulation also, walking around a sacred site in Medina.
And again, we have videos of all of these walks in the book. And so we, certainly we write about the walks and the background, but they're QR codes, and so you can just scan and you can watch one of the models demonstrating the walks. But I wanted to explain a little bit more about the Vitality Walk. We start our book with that walk, and it involves a mudra, which is a spiritual gesture. And so you just fold your thumb into the middle of your palm and you wrap your 4 fingers around the thumb. And so this is a mudra. And, just try to incorporate that into just your daily walk. So
wow.
It activates the lung channel.
Okay.
And it activates a very important acupuncture point called the lagong in the middle of the thumb. And so I tell my patients, just try that and see how that feels. And one of my patients reported that she could walk faster. She wasn't getting tired going up the hill. And then try to work in the breath work, which is inhale, exhale, all through the nose. And then you can incorporate the steps.
Yeah. So, the interesting thing about this mudra, it's called in Sanskrit Adli Mudra. Sanskrit is one of the languages used in yoga and Ayurveda. They're one of the most ancient languages in the world. And that has the component of the primordial, the original. And you will see a lot of babies, they actually have this gesture. And in the womb, they also have this mudra, which, we all have seen the index and thumb for meditative purposes touching each other. This is a very specific one. So yeah, very, very interesting. You can just incorporate this one aspect, as Dr. Yun mentioned, and make a change.
Yeah, I have a patient with breast cancer, and she's gotten surgery, she's getting another surgery, and she's been doing the Vitality Walk. She's a big walker, and she's teaching it to other people, and she loves it. So of course she's getting acupuncture, she's on herbs, but it's also, dietetics, foods she's eating, it's movement, it's meditation, it's spirituality, being in nature. And so in order to be healthy and vital, it's not just one thing. It's incorporating all of these different activities and factors into your life. And so it's just really, really important that there isn't just one thing that you are doing that's going to be the key to vitality. It's all of these things.
But movement is really important. Movement, you could, take the best herbs, the best supplement, but if you don't move, and in our book, we mentioned one very famous proverb. What's the proverb with the door hinge?
The door
hinge?
Yeah. Running water is never stale, and a door hinge never gets worn out. Thus, it is with the person's physique and vital energy. So it's the idea of movement. And, we lead such sedentary lives. My patients just sit all day long for 8 hours. And I think, working from home has really has been, in some ways, very detrimental to our health. We're sitting for 10 hours, 11 hours on our computer. I have a patient, you mentioned hip pain, and she also has hip pain. And she told me that she had done Tai Chi a long time ago, and I really encouraged her to do it. And she's like, when I do Tai Chi, I have less pain. And I said, if you do Tai Chi every day, you're not going to need acupuncture.
I love that. I think it's so true too. Another thing that I love about the walking that you mentioned is just being outside and how beneficial that is just alone. And then how something like with the Vitality Walk and doing the mudra, like that's just one little extra thing that you have to do while you're on the walk that could make a big difference. So I want to talk about you guys were talking about mindfulness. Now, when you say like, okay, like we need to, it's a huge issue. Like we're not mindful. We're more distracted now than ever. Like we all know that, with all of the technology that we have. But when it comes to mindfulness, what are some ways that we can, I think just getting out of the house and going on a walk is a way to be mindful. And you mentioned breath work, but what if you're like still in your head? You're like, you're outside, but you're like, okay, or like, you're still on your phone, or
Yeah.
you're just like having a hard time getting out of the brain. Like,
Yes.
what are some other ways that we can get it, tap into that mindfulness, especially when that's really hard to do for a lot of people that aren't in that practice already?
Yeah.
Yeah. So one thing, as for you mentioned, if you're still on your phone, of course you can have your phone with earpods and listen to uh, mantras, or you might listen to a nice piece of music or whatever really is sustaining you. However, if you do the mudra, you cannot scroll on your phone. Okay, so that's already an important thing. And by the way, the thumb is gently wrapped. You don't want to make it too tight. Just gently
Okay.
hold your thumb in. So there's other methods, counting the step with the breath, so that you really are focused, and that will slow down the mind, because your mind, the mind intent, that rikpa, that awareness has to be there, so that you have the step count and the breath count. So you coordinate those two, and they will diminish all the this mindful activity of as ruminating on the past, thinking about the future. You will be in the present,
Yeah.
and that's really important.
And we've taught this walk for many years, the Vitality Walk in
Decades.
particular. And students report that their mind doesn't wander when they are doing this walk, because they're actually they're counting. It's kind of a concentration practice. So you count 1, 2, 3, and then 2 empty steps. Counting, you're doing the breath, calming the nervous system. And so one way is to count. One way, that's a very simple way of doing it, counting your steps.
Yeah, and many different cultures, this whole idea of counting, they have these malas, or prayer bead, or rosary, worry beads, depending on the culture tradition. And just, in a case of just, moving those beads makes you focus on the concentration of the each bead, and, reciting an affirmation, a prayer, or a mantra, whatever it might be. So that's also, an example how it's been used for centuries, and being of support to just focus the mind, center the mind, and be in the present.
Right. When we're going through some very, very difficult emotions, and we all do in different phases of our lives, that we can say a mantra like "Peace with Every Step," which is a book by a wonderful Vietnamese monk and a peace activist. He's since passed, but he wrote a book called "Peace with Every Step," and his signature teaching was the mindful walking. It's very hard for people to sit and to meditate in the Western culture. It's very hard for us to be still and to be silent and to be quiet. And so I think in some ways the walking meditation is more accessible, right? Because we're moving. We can calm our mind in that way. We can walk in a beautiful park, with nature. The trees emit certain chemicals that help to support our immunity. And so that could be a very, very positive thing when there are thoughts that just won't stop. And really the purpose of mindfulness is not to stop the thoughts, because it's the nature of the mind to think. People have this misconception that we need to empty our minds. That's very, very hard to do. And so the invitation is to let the thoughts come and let it go. And when the mind wanders, bring it back to the breath, bring it back to the counting, bring it back to the feet, feeling of the feet on the ground. And so the invitation is really to move away from the thinking mind, where think all the time, to sensing and feeling. And the way that we can do that is to really anchor our focus and concentration on the body.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's so helpful for everyone should, be able to take the time and do this for themselves wherever you are. But for people, you've mentioned you've treated people with cancer and their different health issues like that. Can you talk to us a little bit more about the immunity walk? Because I'm really intrigued to hear about that.
Yeah, so that immunity walk again has a specific pattern of walking with breath. So you're walking actually in a sequence, unlike the vitality walk, where you have the 1, 2 exhale and then 2 empty step. in this walk, in Chinese, it's called shi shi he, meaning inhale, exhale. So it's all done dynamically through the nose. So, but maybe not as strong as in the vitality walk. And there is no Agni Mudra. What is really interesting is that you placing your palm, the Lagong point, in front of your sternum. And the sternum, under the sternum bone, is a very interesting organ concept, is the thymus gland. The T cells, the key component for the immunity, the T helper cells, are right behind it. So even though at the time this walk was good for your overall health, we know that there is an energetic connection between the thymus gland and the immunity. So you also are doing, when you do this shi shi he, you're doing a rotation, illustrated in the QR code. You're doing a slight rotation of the body, and you're stimulating the nerve outlets from the spine, but also it affects the vagus nerve. So the vagus nerve is closely connected with the neck and with some of these structures. So you kind of do a regulation of the vagus nerve. And a lot of talk nowadays is about vagal regulation, but it was already looked at in terms of strengthening your system by turning your head. And some of the amazing exercises in some of the Qigong, the breath control techniques in China, was also called the turtle. The turtle was looked at as a longevity practice, and you would see that the turtle has this ability of turning the neck very slowly, like stimulating all those nerve outlets. So the immunity walk has components of these. We talked about the tiger, we talked about the crane, we talked about the bear, but also there's this idea of the turtle. The turtle is really a symbolic element in Chinese. I would say in Chinese symbolic animals for longevity. And the idea of the neck movement is really interesting, because the neck is tied in with the vagus, but also this whole idea of moving the spine to work on things like, the adrenal glands are above the kidney. So here we hear a lot about cortisol, stress. Well, by doing this movement, you're stimulating this area and you're balancing out the nervous system, which puts you in sympathetic, parasympathetic. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Yes. So these walking and exercise can put us in the parasympathetic mode. So sympathetic mode is the fight or flight mode. So this is like when we're driving on the freeway, we're trying to meet deadlines. But if we're always in that mode, then there's trouble, right?
Yeah.
We need to move away from the sympathetic to the parasympathetic mode, which is the rest and digest and relaxation mode. So acupuncture puts you in that mode, massage, being in nature, being with friends. And so we want to move away from the sympathetic mode to the rest and digest and relaxation mode. And Qigong and Tai Chi, these mindful movement exercises can help you do that. And that's when we heal. That's when we can repair our bodies.
That's connected to the immunity walk specifically.
I love that. I can't wait to do these because now that I have the book, I'm so excited. And I'm really always working on my immunity, and that's something that I've had some health issues. So that keeping that strong is really important to me. You've mentioned Qigong a few times. Can you tell us what that is? Because I think Tai Chi and I know they're interconnected, but they're different.
Yeah. So Qigong is Qi is, roughly translated as energy or breath. Gong is the practice. It's, similar to in yogic terms, pranayama, breath control, this whole idea of breath. But Qigong has different schools of Qigong, different postures of Qigong, the original ones coming from Watto, which was a great physician around the 2nd century, with, coordinated some of the animalistic features to ones mimicking these animals and getting the strength and the ability to capture that spirit of, a feline creature, tiger or a bear or a crane or whatever, or a turtle. I say, what would you ever think of being like a turtle. Well, the turtle has longevity factor. I was recently at the San Diego Zoo, wonderful zoo, and you could see that one turtle has been there since 1927, and it's been there for over 100 years.
Wow.
Yes, so those uh, aspects are part of this overall big umbrella called Qigong. Some of them come from a temple called the Shaolin Temple, and actually there was a yogic master priest that went from India to China, and he taught the monks, that were sitting all the time in meditative posture to move for their health and well-being. And he developed a specific style of Qigong called Yi Jin Qing, muscle tendon exchange. Then there were other ones called the Baduan Jin, the Eight Treasures, which has 8 different movements. And those are very popular ones. And then there are some more high-hand, I would say, more sophisticated Qigong that come from the Washang Mountain in China, a very specific mountain where Taoist hermits used to practice and go be in retreat, and of course the Wudong Mountain. So those are 2 mountain areas in China where they had these hermits. But it's now basically become popularized, and there's also Qigong posture where you just maintain a static posture. So it's very similar to yoga in many ways, but probably
Okay.
more movement than in yoga.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So when you're having a client or, somebody who's reading this book and they're like, really interested to start moving more and incorporating these different, ways of walking into their life, what do you recommend, like, starting out? Is there a time length that you recommend, or like give us some basics for
Yeah,
somebody just starting out?
So most of us have maybe smartphones with us. We do not have the original pedometer, which was called Mount Pokai, which has a step counter. There was actually the 10,000 step idea was developed right after the Tokyo Olympic 1964. So there was a company in Japan that actually developed this step counter, and it had 10,000 steps.
Oh.
You would go. So that was the whole idea of 10,000 steps. It wasn't based on research. So the
Sure.
current research says, of course, if you walk between 7. So to start, you can do traditional walk, which is just walking, maybe incorporating the mudra, or do any of the other walking style. But the one thing that you might have seen recently is also another walk called retro walk. Have you seen people walking backwards in park or in small hills? Have you seen that?
I have done it up hills. Yeah.
Yes. So retro walk, the way you do it uphill is to save your knees. It strengthens up the glutes and the quadriceps, those thigh muscles. So it works differently than walking traditionally. So that retro walking, actually, you can find it. And I saw it in China over 30 years ago, and I was kind of perplexed. What are these people doing? In here, there was nobody doing retro walking. And it's based on one of the Tai Chi movement called Repulse the Monkey, which you walk backwards. So it has this, instead of stepping heel to the ball of the foot, you step ball of the foot to the heel. And it really saves the knee. Now, the interesting thing that there was a gentleman, and it's mentioned in our first chapter of the book, that did this retro walking from very close to where you are, the San Francisco Bay Area to New York in 1915. And the bet was $5,000 to be done under 1 year's time. So he did it in 260 some days. It was monitored by somebody, and it was documented throughout the United States. He had a mirror. Of course, you have to always be aware of behind. Don't do retro walking and not know if there's a log or a pothole or something. Do it safely. And that is one of the walks. And we also talk about the Japanese walk, which is, a dynamic walk for 3 minutes, fast, slow, also known as intermittent walk. However, at the end of the day, you need to decide, okay, do I want to get more vital? I'm going to be on your show, so I have to be vital today. Or do I need to be more mindful, relaxed? So I might pick the mindful walk or the longevity walk, which we call Bagua, the circumambulation, circular walk. Is it really cold outside, blizzardy, or super hot? Do I want to go out? No, I don't want to get a heat stroke. I'm going to do something indoors. And you can do some of this Tai Chi walks, the animal walk, or even the slow Bagua circular walk indoors. So you have the selection. What does your body need at the time? You know, intuitively, do I need to calm down? Do I need to be energized? Do I need to help myself to have more confidence? I don't want to fall. I'm over 65. I'm way, way over 65, by the way. Way, way over 65. You can figure when I say I was 20 years old, over 50 years ago. So you already can calculate. And you have the confidence. I'm not afraid of being caught in a sidewalk bump where the root of the tree go up and bump the sidewalk, then you can fall. Catch myself. I already have experienced that where I caught myself where it would have been an imminent fall. And it gives you a sense of well-being, confidence. When you're 20, 30, 40, oh, I'm down, don't worry about fun. Then you see, grandpa, grandma fell, they unfortunately broke their hip. Can be really serious over the age of 65. So to have that confidence, you want more confidence? Maybe you're going to need to do the golden rooster or the catwalk to work on your balance. Or maybe the bagua, the circular walking. So it all is an individual thing. It's not, oh, I have to get those 8,000 steps. Maybe today, you need to balance yourself. I'm not going to walk the 8,000 being. So you can modify it. And in the last chapter, we have different programs, how you can combine some of the animal walks, like you might do a vitality walk for 20 minutes, and then you might just take one of the animal walks that you connect with. You connect. Some of us, connect with a cat more than, let's say, a dog. So what does that mean? That this is energetics. What energy you want to absorb that particular day.
And you ask, who should be doing these walks? Everyone. And the concept of preventative medicine is foundational to East Asian medicine. So we open the book with a quote from the Yellow Emperor's Classics, and it goes, superior physicians do not cure diseases, they prevent diseases. So treating a disease after it's risen is like casting weapons when the battle has begun, or digging a well when you're thirsty. It's too late. Yeah. And I don't want to say it's never too late. You can always start these practices, but really the best way is to start when you're relatively young and relatively healthy to prevent what's to come, So that is the highest form of medicine. And I always try to instill that upon my patients, like start these practices when you don't have the aches and the pains and things like that.
And in terms of your transitioning to the menopausal phase, so why don't you share that experience? That was a very interesting experience.
I'm 54, and I during the pandemic in 2020 I experienced perimenopausal symptoms, but coincidentally, or maybe not coincidentally, nothing's a coincidence. I started a Tai Chi challenge January 1st, 2020, not knowing what was to unfold in our lives. And so I did a 1,000-day Tai Chi challenge, 4 sets of Sun Tai Chi, 30 minutes a day, every single day continuously for 1,000 days. And you're looking very quizzical, like, I still don't understand how I did that. Of course, the pandemic did help because I was home all the time. I wasn't traveling. I wasn't going into work. And then I kept it up. And I started with a 30-day challenge, and I just kept going. And people would ask me, like, how did you do that? And I said, I never really thought about the challenge. I woke up and I really planned, when am I going to do my Tai Chi today? Right? I just focused on getting it done today. And really proud of having done that. And I had really no symptoms that many women experience during perimenopause, debilitating symptoms. Of course, I took herbs, I did acupuncture, but the Tai Chi really helped my mental health so much. And it's not like you feel different after one day of practice. Of course, you feel good because you're generating a lot of serotonin and dopamine, feel-good hormones when you are doing Tai Chi. But, it really took over 3 years of doing it every single day that I derive some substantial health benefits. And so the regularity is important. Even if it's just for 5 minutes, try to do it every single day and then increase it to 10 minutes, 15, 20, but start where you are. Many people have limitations, and it's very difficult for them to move and to walk. So just start where you are. Just go around, your around the block in your apartment or your house, and then build upon that.
Yeah, from one telephone pole to the next.
Yeah.
Then do it round, and then go to the following pole if you have those old-fashioned telephone poles. So it's all individual, It's not it's called what, cookie standard
Cookie cutter.
Cookie cutter. I'm sorry, English.
No, I mean,
it was not my first language.
Oh my gosh, your English is perfect. But
Yeah.
I think that's a really good point, because a lot of times, I think even in our society too, we're like pushed to like, don't just start small. Like, people will make these big goals and they don't listen to like where they're at. Where is their body at? Start there. You don't need to go big. It's better to keep it small, because then you actually might follow through instead of giving up because it's too much.
Yeah.
I love that 1,000 day challenge. That is so incredible. And it is, so many women listening to my show are actually going through perimenopause right now. And, you're a expert in Tai Chi, but if someone wanted to start like doing something at home, it's nice to know you can start with 5, you can still get a benefit. My, what I did with Tai Chi was, I think it was like a 13-minute video, and that's where I started. And so, but now I'm like, okay, I want to do a little challenge for myself too, because it is such a it gets to such a great impact on the body without a lot of impact, like hard impact on the body. I love that.
Yeah, Tai Chi also is considered a cardiotonic without being a cardio stressor. So they use it for cardiac rehab. So, this whole idea, you have to stress, you have to go. No, you have to slowly strengthen, like the turtle, walk slowly and make it to 100.
I love that. I had an acupuncturist on my show a little while back, and she talked about our blood sugar and how important walking is for our blood sugar and walking after meals. And she said there's an old saying that says, walk 100 steps after you eat to live 100 years. Have you heard that?
Yes, of course. Yes.
And that really stayed with me too, because it's like, that's my new, not new, it's not new anymore, but it's my habit of, I'm done eating, I did the dishes, I put my dog's harness on, and we go out the front door and do a walk. So I can't wait to start incorporating some of these different walks with my walks, because I'm out there twice a day. So I can't wait to, improve them even more. So you guys are amazing. I am so honored that you were able to share with our audience, but I would love if you could tell us about where people can find your book. I know they're going to want to check your book out, and I can link everything that you share in the show notes, so it's easy for them to find.
Yeah, so we have our website, Walking Your Way to Vitality, and you can see some of the sample walks there, and you can, go to the page which has the podcast, your podcast, and events that we're doing. As a matter of fact, depending when your show would be aired, we have a big event here at the Santa Monica Public Library in the Martin Luther King Auditorium next week. So we have those events, free public events and other workshop coming up. So Walking Your Way to Vitality, and you can order from the independent bookstore or Amazon or Barnes & Noble, whatever ones that you click on.
I really love that you have the videos too, because, a lot of people need that visual reminder of how to do things. So I will make sure to link this. Everybody go and get the book. And thank you again for joining me today.
Well, thank you so much for having us.
Thank you so much.